This is Wade and we are Aeriae. In this video I'm going to perform the live version of the track Skirr from my first album Hold R1. Then I'm going to describe in detail the software and controller setup, how I put it together and why it is the way it is. If you're watching this video on YouTube, you can jump between sections by clicking the time links down in the description. So, here we go. I originally made Skirr back in 2006 using Logic. I've got the project on screen now. This is the version that appeared on Hold R1. The performance version that I put together in Ableton Live for my first gig turned out to be what's still the most complicated live setup I've come up with. There are lots of controls, it takes lots of practice to get my confidence up on the track, and I forget how to do it between gigs. The plus side of these difficulties is that it's exciting to play, and it can come out differently every time. I didn't make Skirr so tricky to play because I wanted to make life hard for myself. It's just that each one of those performance setups I made back in 2008 and 2009 was basically another experiment in working out how to reproduce my album music live in a way that would satisfy me. So now I'm going to describe how I put the live version of Skirr together. I started by opening up the original song in Logic. I listened to all the different parts and isolated various loops and stings that I thought I could use. I bounced these out individually then gathered them as clips in Ableton Live. When arranging clips in Live, I divided the main progression of the track into 7 blocks because I thought that was a manageable number while still offering enough variation over time. And structurally, I think of the whole track in terms of an A half, which has one bass riff looping, and a B half with bass variations. So when I hit the play button on the remote SL, the core bass loop starts and the first drum machine pattern starts. Over time, I can then launch 3 versions of the high tape delay loop using these 3 black keys. When I'm ready to move to the B half of the track, I've got 3 versions of the B half bass loop on these 3 black keys here. So wait for my moment to enter. So around these loops I've got 4 other black keys, the 2 here and 2 here, that deliver little stings and bleeps and riffs. And in each case I've set it up so there are multiple random variations for each sting. The randomizing is achieved by using the Macintosh's IAC bus. If you don't know what that is, it's a virtual MIDI channel system built into the Mac operating system. So I'm going to turn off the drum and bass and the tape delay loop, and I'll show you when I press this key, for instance. What it actually launches in Live is a utility clip with one non-playing note. I've put an Ableton Live random device on this track and set it up so that the clip might output this note as written, or it might randomly output any one of the 6 semitones above it. In other words, it picks one of 7 adjacent notes at random. Whatever note is chosen is routed via Live's output section to the Mac's IAC bus, which causes it to re-enter Ableton Live as if I'd pressed it on a MIDI keyboard connected to the computer. If I show the MIDI assignments on the screen now, you can see the 7 consecutive semitones attached to these 7 clips over here. So that's one way you can make one MIDI control launch a random clip from within a group of clips. The topic of the IAC bus is something you can Google if you want more details on this or other similar techniques. Okay, so I'll bring the track back in. Back on the remote SL, I've also got repeating stings and loops on the grey buttons up here, which help build the foundation of the B half of the track. For Skirr's percussion, I wanted to use more obvious 4/4 type riffs than I used in the album version. The original percussion came from a drum kit made up of samples I took from 8-bit arcade games. Instead of bouncing out drum loops from the album version to using the performance version, I dropped the original samples into a Reaktor beatbox ensemble called GoBox, and there I sequenced about 7 new riffs that I like. I also added a looping kick, which isn't present in the album version. The kick makes it easier to get your bearings, while the album version has a more microscopic approach overall. This is a typical difference between my live material and my album tracks. People can listen to a recording as many times as they want to keep discovering more about the music, but in a live situation, You get to hear something once and that's it. So I generally make my live stuff easier to grab onto. I assigned the GoBox pattern selector to this dial on the remote so that I can change drum patterns by turning the dial. Originally, I thought I might jam the percussion live in GoBox using the mouse, but I decided I didn't want to touch the mouse anytime during the performance. Because when you touch the mouse, you tend to just do the one thing you're doing with the mouse while everything else loops. And this live setup was based on the idea that I'd be able to physically control a lot of different things at once and that people would be able to see me doing it. Finally, I can play the solo on the keyboard, which is just out of shot, over there, and I can activate a looping recorded version of it over here. Plus, I can press this button here to launch the outro mess. So that's all the stuff just specific to this track. On top of that, I've got all my usual smart knob effects dials up here. Faders here. And track gates here. And that's how I put Skirr together.